Donald Trump has transformed America in ways no one could ever anticipate. One can only guess where the country will be at the end of his presidency. We have, however, captured the journey to the Oval Office in the book entitled Defiant for America. They said he didn't have the guts to run for public office. He proved them wrong. They said his presidential bid would not last a few weeks. He proved them wrong. They said he could not become the nominee. He proved them wrong. Get a copy of this book and follow Donald Trump in his journey to make America great again. Found at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere online. Get your own copy today. Don't go anywhere. The Fourth Branch program will return in just a moment.
After reading several books based on presidents and on Obama specifically, I found that they're typically partisan. The Obama legacy targets the heart of the issue by giving credit to the president where it's due, but definitely coming down hard on Obama on his bigger failures, like his handling of the Syrian crisis.
If you are in college, going to college, you are an educator, a faculty member, or someone with interest in government or politics, The Obama Legacy is definitely a book to read.
My professor recommended The Obama Legacy.
A friend actually recommended The Obama Legacy.
I would highly recommend this book for anyone, whether for academic use or leisure reading.
I would recommend this book to anyone out there searching for an impartial and unbiased look into Barack Obama's tenure as president.
I would definitely recommend this book as a good read for both liberals and conservatives.
Join me here on the Fourth Branch at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. every Saturday. Are you a patriot? Are you a patriot? If you ask that question to any individuals, to any American citizen, it is a guarantee that the answer to the question is absolutely. In this political environment we're in, it is necessary to ask the question. If you watch Fox, it means you are associated with the Republican Party, and whatever is said by anyone in the Republican Party, and today most specifically by Donald Trump, the president, and at Fox, Sean Hannity, Fox and Friend, Carlson, it becomes almost impossible to have an actual conversation about the state of the country. If you ask Republican, everything seems to be fine. If you ask a Democrat, the answers may vary depending on who you talk to. A number of Republicans that I had talked to believe that the country is doing great, the economy is doing well, they have a job, everything is fine. Now, on the Democrat side, the scenario is not any different in terms of the economy. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. But the question that is asked, are you a patriot? Now, as I expressed earlier in the answer to the question, that every single American that would be asked the question would answer unequivocally that yes, he or she is an American. She is a patriot, rather. And throughout the 2016 presidential election, I had the privilege of talking, dialoguing, conversing with a number of people. And that particular fact get me to think that there is a high level of misunderstanding in terms of patriotism. Most individuals, even as of today, in fact a couple of weeks ago, that same experiment was done to find out where people are in terms of their patriotism. And nothing has changed. It seems that most people continue to believe that to be American equates to be a patriot. Well, it is not. And the reason it's important, I am about to provide a contrast example to show the importance of knowing that you are a patriot or you are not. And of course, if it's of importance to you to be, then you can change the dynamic of life in order to become a patriot. But just to be sure, to be American is absolutely not the same as to be a patriot. That doesn't mean you cannot be a patriot if you are American. In fact, the first part is absolutely necessary. In order to be considered a patriot American, you have to first be an American. However, the point I'm trying to make is you can be an American citizen and not be a patriot. Now, here is the first part of the example. But before I go there, let me say the following, that patriotism is not just a word to toss around whenever the circumstance demands it, or whenever it helps to score some point, or if it helps someone may feel good about his or her particular circumstance. So just to say you are a patriot, and of course that would make anyone who says that or who believes that feel good, but saying that it doesn't make it such. Now, he's an example of a circumstance that begun since last year when the NFL players, starting especially with Kaepernick, started to kneel during the national anthem. Now, as you will find out shortly, that even the President of the United States doesn't have a concept, doesn't have an understanding of the word patriot. Now, the national anthem, the flag, waving the flag, singing the national anthem, all that considered symbol of pride, symbol of nationalism, but neither the waving of the flag nor the standing for the national anthem and putting your hand on your chest, none of those define anyone patriotism, because it is not. It just, as I mentioned, a symbol of patriotism. It's a symbol of nationalism. It's a symbol of pride, but it is not patriotism. Second, patriotism is not just a pair of shoes or a pair of pants or a dress that you wear whenever you feel like, and once you're done with it, you can dispose of it. And it seems that if you've been watching the conversation, the dialogue in the country in regards to that very topic, it boils down to almost that. It looks like patriotism seems a disposable item that can be used at some time, at some point in time, and put on the side when that particular circumstance no longer exists. Now, I said that for the reason that I took the very example of the NFL players kneeling during a national anthem. If you recall, that caused an uproar between various faction, or if you like, various demographics in the country, mainly blacks versus whites, or vice versa. The President of the United States, during a rally after Mr. Kaepernick knelt to protest police brutality and the killing of young black men, and most of the time unarmed black men, the President of the United States at a rally lambasted the kneeling during the national anthem, and he suggested that everybody ought to stand during the national anthem to respect the flag, to show patriotism, and so on. A different conversation that we'll probably have at a different time, but in terms of why kneeling during the national anthem actually should be supported by everybody, but this is not really the topic today. I want to contrast the idea that patriotism is not just a word, it's not just a gesture during the national anthem, and something that you just do at that time, and then after that everything is permitted, everything is permissible.
Don't go anywhere. The fourth branch program will return in just a moment.
Democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Can America survive the constant bombardment of falsehoods, distortion of facts, and the onslaught of foreign involvement in our internal affairs? According to a recent survey, 54% of Americans are against the investigation into the Russia meddling in the 2016 presidential election. The big question is, why would Americans not want to know how an enemy of the United States managed to interfere in our election and taint our democratic system? The article Cheers to Ignorance, located on the People Branch website, link of which is provided below, explains in very great detail why most Republicans may no longer care about America. That patriotism is not just a word, it's not just a gesture during the national anthem, and something that you just do at that time, and then after that everything is permitted, everything is permissible. And I say that for the following reason. During the 2016 presidential election, as it stands today, that probably the whole world knows that there is currently an investigation being conducted by the special counsel, Robert Mueller. Now, the reason for that investigation, obviously, is because that the U.S. intelligence agencies found that an enemy state, Russia, did meddle in our system of democracy. Now, it is also assumed that there seems to be a certain level of collaboration between that party, Russia, and the Trump campaign. Now, let's pause for just a moment and try to contrast these two examples and try to determine what exactly does someone today who seems to be so gun-ho about almost obligating the NFL players to not to kneel during the national anthem because it's unpatriotic. In fact, just a few days ago, Donald Trump mentioned that if someone ought not to stand during the national anthem, then that person should leave the country. In other words, that individual is not considered American and should not even be in the country. Now, I want to contrast that today with this interesting example that while this group, because you have to follow maybe it's ignorance, maybe it's misunderstanding, or maybe it's just out of spite that the President of the United States seems to think that if somebody doesn't kneel during national anthem, that person is unpatriotic, that person doesn't belong in the country. Now contrast that with the fact that today we have proof that during the 2016 presidential election that his team, a number of people in his team, and there is also, even as it seems today, that even he, Donald Trump himself, may have collaborated with an enemy state. Now contrast those two and try to see the irony of the whole debate, the irony of the whole discussion, and why and how someone, unless there is a certain level of ignorance, a certain level of misunderstanding of the word patriotism, that you would argue that during the national anthem you want everybody to stand proudly. There is nothing wrong with that, and this is not really the argument that there is something wrong with people standing during the national anthem and proudly sing along and to express pride, to express nationalism. This is not really an argument against that. The argument rather is, how in the world can you justify going after someone who is expressing discontent with the way that he is treated by the government, and say that this person is not a patriot, and at the same time you can justify your action collaborating with an enemy state? Now you see the irony of the whole thing, that in fact, although there is always this conversation that the collaborating with an enemy state is not treason, it's semantic. The reason I say it's semantic is because it was defined way during the drafting of the Constitution. It was defined that only in time of war that someone would be labeled a traitor if that individual were to collaborate with the enemy. Now I must say that this definition is really somewhat narrow, but we don't want to lose sight of the discussion of the topic today. But I just want to make the point that the definition itself is very narrow and doesn't really capture the fact that if someone here in the United States, an American citizen, decide to collaborate with an enemy, now whether we're at war or not, the collaboration of an American citizen with an enemy, that using whatever collaboration you're providing to that enemy to do harm to the country, then I'm not sure what you would call that, because if by the very definition of treason, by the very definition of someone who betrays somebody else's trust, in that case your country's trust, and we have actually great example of that. If someone works for the intelligence agency and that person happened to be sharing secret with the enemy, now that person is labeled as a traitor. So, and whether we are at war, physically at war with the enemy or not, but that person is labeled a traitor. So I completely disagree with the idea that if indeed willingly, knowingly, voluntarily, that Donald Trump and associates collaborated with Russia during the 2016 presidential election, then it's treason. No matter how much you try to spin it, it's treason. But again, as I said, this is not really the topic that I wanted to discuss, but I wanted to make certain that there is a level of understanding as what patriotism is. Because if you are a patriot, in fact, you should welcome the idea of your colleague, of your countrymen, to be able to protest against wrongdoing by the government, because that's really what upholds the whole system of democracy we have here in this country. When we are not happy with what the government does, with what the government is doing, whether it's the federal government or the local government, then we have to have a way to cure that problem, a remedy. Sometime being able to vote someone out of office is a way to remedy the situation. Yes, there is that too. But a police officer that mistreat an individual who is he or she is supposed to protect, now there has to be a way to remedy the situation. Again, I don't want to sidetrack from the topic that to go after someone who kneels to protest police brutality and try to turn that into a discussion on patriotism is the most hypocritical approach that a president, this particular president, could have taken.
Don't go anywhere. The fourth branch program will return in just a moment.
After reading several books based on presidents and on Obama specifically, I found that they're typically partisan. The Obama legacy targets the heart of the issue by giving credit to the president where it's due, but definitely coming down hard on Obama on his bigger failures, like his handling of the Syrian crisis.
If you are in college, going to college, you are an educator, a faculty member, or someone with interest in government or politics, The Obama Legacy is definitely a book to read.
My professor recommended The Obama Legacy.
A friend actually recommended The Obama Legacy.
I would highly recommend this book for anyone, whether for academic use or leisure reading.
I would recommend this book to anyone out there searching for an impartial and unbiased look into Barack Obama's tenure as president.
I would definitely recommend this book as a good read for both liberals and conservatives.
Join me here on the fourth branch at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. every Saturday. Go after someone who kneels to protest police brutality and try to turn that into a discussion on patriotism is the most hypocritical approach that a president, this particular president, could have taken. And the reason is because while he's taking that position, while he's saying that, well, everybody should stand proudly to sing the national anthem and try to portray the idea that he is a patriot, we can tell, we can say without any ambiguity, we can say without any doubt that the notion of patriotism doesn't belong to Donald Trump. And I'm not just saying that for the sake of saying that, because there is enough evidence that says that while he's going after those players for kneeling down, and again I want to emphasize the fact that as a patriot, it is everyone's job to support the action of even those we disagree with. This is what patriotism is. This is what democracy is. This is how we protect the system of government that we have in order to prevent the erosion of that system of democracy. Because if we don't do that, at some point we're going to lose all that. So when someone kneels to protest wrongdoing by our government, we, even if we are not affected, even if we are not impacted, or I should say everybody else in the country who is a patriot, their main job at that time is to support that individual or that group who is protesting wrongdoing, because that's the way democracy is protected. That's the way patriotism survives. Because if you don't do that, today is this group's turn, tomorrow is going to be your turn. So you're going to need the rest of the country, the other groups, to support your complaint against the government. Because whenever the government does something, act in a negative manner towards a certain group, it is the job of every patriot to support the action of those who are complaining about the government wrongdoing. Because if you don't do that, today this group is impacted and you ignore it, tomorrow when you impact it, the other group are going to ignore it, your situation as well. And as time goes by, every single group in the country will be impacted by something that the government is doing that's wrong, but there would be no remedy because there is no more democracy, there is no more patriotism. So again, the very action of standing and expressing pride for the national anthem, there is nothing wrong with that. But there is also absolutely nothing wrong with someone kneeling to protest wrongdoing by the government. But the point I'm trying to make, especially with this discussion today, is to show that there seems to be a high level of misunderstanding or even ignorance on the part not only of the President of the United States, but also on the part of all those who are supporting him. And the reason for that is because while he is saying that those people should stand for national anthem, at the same time, he doesn't seem to see there is anything wrong with collaborating with an enemy state. Those two don't jive at all, because you cannot be a patriot forcing someone to do something that you construe as patriotism, and when it serves you, when it pleases you. That's why in the beginning I mentioned that patriotism is not a pair of shoes,
patriotism is not a pair of pants and it's not a dress to wear whenever you feel like, whenever it's convenient to you, and dispose of when you're done with it and everything is permissible for you, everything is permitted. This is not patriotism. Patriotism requires that we all support the action of even those we disagree with, especially when that person or that group has a grievance for wrongdoing by our government. I'll say it again. Patriotism requires that we all support the action of even those we disagree with, especially if that group has a grievance against wrongdoing by our government. There is no if and but about it, because as I mentioned, today it's this group that has the grievance, and throughout time we have seen that different group has had different type of grievance that of wrongdoing by our government. And that's why, if you recall the history of this country, that we started really in a very dark period. There was a time that blacks were slaves. That was the grievance of a group from wrongdoing by our government. Now, there were enough patriots at that time that saw the necessity to address the situation. Now, imagine for 1 second that the grievance was never addressed. Imagine what would have happened. Later on, you have the Civil Rights Act. Later on, you have the women's right. Now, imagine for 1 second that nobody ever addressed those grievances. So, if you're talking about patriotism, now the President of the United States has this habit of using hatred to rally various groups in the country against to pit one group against the other. It is unfortunate that there are enough people that seem to go along with that. Now, I want to make clear that I am not under any illusion here that everybody is going to get this message. Everybody is going to see the light and start behaving in a way that's worthy of being a patriot.
Don't go anywhere. The fourth branch program will return in just a moment.
Join me here on the fourth branch at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. every Saturday.
Donald Trump has transformed America in ways no one could ever anticipate. One can only guess where the country will be at the end of his presidency. We have, however, captured the journey to the Oval Office in the book entitled Defiant for America. They said he didn't have the guts to run for public office. He proved them wrong. They said his presidential bid would not last a few weeks. He proved them wrong. They said he could not become the nominee. He proved them wrong. Get a copy of this book and follow Donald Trump in his journey to make America great again. Found at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere online. Get your own copy today.
Don't go anywhere. The fourth branch program will return in just a moment. Can America survive the constant bombardment of falsehoods, distortion of facts, and the onslaught of foreign involvement in our internal affairs? According to a recent survey, 54% of Americans are against the investigation into the Russia meddling in the 2016 presidential election. The big question is, why would Americans not want to know how an enemy of the United States managed to interfere in our election and taint our democratic system? The article Cheers to Ignorance, located on the People Branch website, link of which is provided below, explains in very great details why most Republicans may no longer care about America. I want to make clear that I am not under any illusion here that everybody is going to get this message, everybody is going to see the light and start behaving in a way that's worthy of being a patriot. I do not have that kind of illusion. I'm not delusional. So I know that's not going to be the case. In fact, since the existence of the Republic, it has never been that way. There has always been a group, and sometimes it's a sizable group that always opposes the right thing to be done. If you remember, there was a civil war when Abraham Lincoln decided that he needed to put an end to slavery. So which means there were enough people, there was such a large group of people who did not want to redress the wrongdoing by the government. It's always going to be the case, and it's not always going to be a small group. It can be a very large group, just like it was during the Civil War, that there were enough people on the other side, on the wrong side of history, who did not want to redress the wrongdoing. So I'm not under any illusion that everybody would just fall in line and understand that patriotism requires that everybody support the action of even those they disagree with, especially if that person or that group has a grievance of wrongdoing by a government. But I want to make clear that Donald Trump doesn't express patriotism by bashing someone who kneels to protest police brutality. This is not to say that you have to stand in order to express patriotism. Is actually not true, because patriotism requires a level of support. In fact, if Donald Trump was a patriot, when someone kneels because of police brutality, because of wrongdoing to a group, his job as the president of the United States would have been to redress this type of issue. But instead, he uses it to divide the country. So I want to be sure that everybody understand that it's not patriotism, because you cannot express patriotism in a way that's not even defined as patriotism, and at the same time you're able to justify being able to collaborate with an enemy state and think that you're a patriot. This is not patriotism. In fact, this is teetering on the brink of treason. By the definition, by the very definition of betrayal, this is what it is. For you to collaborate with an enemy, in fact, America's #1 enemy, this is not patriotism. By any stretch of your imagination, this is not patriotism. So we know, we have the fact that Donald Trump is not a patriot. So to support him, to support his action, is not patriotic either, because what he had done is unpatriotic at the very least. In my book, this is betrayal, because as an American citizen, even if you were not to consider yourself as a patriot, as an American citizen, it would fall on every American to protect the nation against all enemies. However small the effort is, even if you're not gonna take arm to defend the country, but the very least that you can do is, if you see someone that's trying to do something that is that's gonna erode our system of government, that's gonna erode our democratic system, the least you can do is raise the alarm, sound the alarm. But instead, according to our intelligence agencies, knowingly or unknowingly, voluntarily, the Donald Trump team collaborated with the United States #1 enemy. In any book, this is not patriotism. So I completely reject the idea that Donald Trump has a standing to tell other people how to be patriot. He doesn't have that kind of he is not in any position to tell anybody how to be a patriot, because as it stands today, there is a high possibility, a very high possibility, that we are heading towards the conclusion, with proof, that Donald Trump, he personally collaborated with US #1 enemy. It's called betrayal. So he's not in any position to dictate how to be a patriot. So I wanted to make sure that there is a certain level of understanding. Standing for the flag is great. It's expression of pride, it's expression of nationalism, but it's not patriotism, and it's not a requirement either, especially if you or a member of a group has a grievance against wrongdoing by our government. You want to preserve democracy in the United States? You want to preserve patriotism? Your first job, the first job, is to support those who have grievances against wrongdoing by our government. That's how it's done. not by bashing that players supposed to stand, players supposed to put hands on the chest, and that's what this is all about. And beyond that, you can do anything that you so wish. This is not patriotism. Now I'm gonna leave you with a videotape that provides a kind of with a few tapes that provides a little bit more understanding of a brief but kind of an interesting understanding of all that I've been saying about the topic patriotism. This is the fourth branch project. We have we air this program every Saturday at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. But today we look at the political environment and consider it necessary, important to address this topic. And we probably will be doing that from time to time until we have a regular schedule for the different topic that comes our way. We also have a website where we publish articles about different topics, mostly political, but from time to time we do also address topics of importance. The fourth branch project is actually created for the very purpose of addressing social and political issues. We hope we can see you shortly, or at least every Saturday, either at 10:30 a.m. or 6:30 p.m. We air this program on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and on a few other websites that allows airing of those type of video. And we're hoping that very soon we'll have a more permanent medium to have the fourth branch project and discuss topics, not just for the sake of discussing, because the very point of the fourth branch project is not to talk about a topic just for the sake of talking about it, but is to educate and also to bring about, and well, hopefully to bring about a solution to whatever the problem is. Until next time, I thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the video. I'll see you on Saturday.
Don't go anywhere. The fourth branch program will return in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The fourth branch program will return in just a moment. Can America survive the constant bombardment of falsehoods, distortion of facts, and the onslaught of foreign involvement in our internal affairs? According to a recent survey, 54% of Americans are against the investigation into the Russia meddling in the 2016 presidential election. The big question is, why would Americans not want to know how an enemy of the United States managed to interfere in our election and taint our democratic system? The article cheers to ignorance, located on the People Branch website, link of which is provided below, explains in very great detail why most Republicans may no longer care about America.
Join me here on the 4th branch at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. every Saturday.
In 1996, a small network by the name of Fox News was launched with just 17 million viewers. Today, with over 100 million people watching regularly, Fox has become the greatest threat to our democracy, constantly bombarding the airwaves with false information, distortion of facts, and outright lies, presenting to its audience as news. Fox has created an army of blissful ignorance. According to a recent survey, 82% of Fox viewers are ignorant of facts and the truth. To keep millions of people in ignorance not only prevents democracy from flourishing, but it also clears the path to authoritarianism, to dictatorship. Martin Luther King Jr. said, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." Let me finish by saying that democracy cannot survive in an environment where truth and facts do not matter. At Fox, truth and facts do not matter. Indeed, democracy in America is in jeopardy. It is a crisis the country can no longer ignore.
Join me here on the 4th branch at 10:30 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. every Saturday.